Welcome in everybody to TYT Sports. So this is an absolute pleasure because not only have I not seen this beautiful man's face in such a long time, but now we get to talk some football with him. It is two-time Super Bowl winner, my dear friend, and someone I truly consider a mentor, Bryant McFadden. Hello, B-Mac.
What's up, Rick? First and foremost, I love the Steeler gear in the background. That's a great way to welcome me with open arms.
Hey, we could only do it for you, all right? We don't do it for the millions that watch our show. It's literally only for you, and that's why I requested that we put it up. So look, you know that I'm a Chicagoan. You had to go up against this guy, I'm sure, in your playing days. Devin Hester retired, and he's 35 years old. My question to you is, and I know the answer, Denise knows the answer. Everyone who follows football knows the answer, but I'm asking you, is Devin Hester a Hall of Famer?
Yeah, I think he's a Hall of Famer. Now, will he get in? That's another question. Because when you look at the dynamics of the Hall of Fame, especially at the specialist position, returners, they haven't been able to get in. And for Devin Hester to get in, first and foremost, I believe Brian Mitchell should get in. When you look at his overall body of work, it's impressive. Now, when you consider Devin Hester, when you talk about Devin Hester, many feel he is the greatest returner in the NFL. That could be an argument between Brian Mitchell and Devin Hester, but Devin Hester put that position on a different stage. The way he returned, the way he used his skill set, how fast he was, being able to make defenders miss, sometimes going the wrong direction just to go the right direction, and made a highlight of it. That was impressive. But before Devin Hester was making those unbelievable plays, Brian Mitchell was doing some of the same things. Not in that fashion, but he was extremely productive. Not to mention, this is a guy that was so consistent. I think Brian Mitchell was the most consistent returner in the game. So for Devin Hester to get in, Brian Mitchell should get in first because he's been retired much longer than Devin Hester. But I believe Devin Hester, he should be a Hall of Famer. Now, will he get in? I don't know. And the crazy thing about that, Rick, Denise, is that Morton Anderson, he's in the Hall. Ray Guy, he's in the Hall. And if you're gonna have a few players that kick the ball to get into the Hall, why not have a few players that return the balls get in also?
So I agree with you. And I understand your guy about Morton Anderson. I understand your point about Ray Guy. I completely understand it. But to your point about Brian Mitchell, and I think he should be in as well, but he didn't do it in a record-setting way that Devin Hester did. So although that we've seen the aesthetically pleasing aspect of making guys miss and game planning around somebody, Devin Hester is literally the best to ever do it. Granted, he did it. He may have done it better setting records, and that's why you see him #1 for punt return touchdowns, #1 for total return touchdowns, what have you. So I understand your point about Brian Mitchell, but we also didn't see Mitchell do the same things and set records the way that Devin Hester did, right?
Well, the record's a little different. That's misconstrued because yes, Devin Hester has the most return touchdowns in NFL history, but there has never been a returner to be as consistent as Brian Mitchell. When you look at his average per return, he's tops in the league. When you look at his return yards totally, he's tops in the league. When you look at his attempts, he's tops in the league. So yes, like I said earlier, remember the first thing I said, Devin Hester probably is the greatest returner in NFL history, right?
Yeah.
But before Devin Hester, who was considered the greatest returner in NFL history? Brian Mitchell.
Probably Brian Mitchell, yeah.
Exactly, so if one get in, the other have to get in. Me personally, I don't mind who gets in first, but I think based on the age difference, when you look at Brian Mitchell, he's been retired for so long, and he just was up a year ago, if I'm not mistaken. Clearly, he should get in first because Devin has to wait, 5 years before he's even eligible?
Correct.
And I think if Brian Mitchell gets in anytime between the 5 years that Devin is waiting, that's an easier entry for Devin to get into the Hall, in my opinion.
What's one reason that you think that, because there seems to be some hesitation, and obviously like not every player that sometimes we really truly believe should be in the Hall of Fame gets to be in the Hall of Fame. So what's one thing that'll hold Devin back from just being the Hall of Famer that we think that he deserves to be?
Well,
what's like his weakness, do you think?
he never was, outside of a returner, he never really provided that consistent impact that many felt like he could provide based on how athletic he was, how skillful he was. He had a few glimpses here or there at the wide receiver position, but he never was that guy that could be a reliable number 2 wide receiver,
right,
or at times consistently a number 3 wide receiver. And when you look at his time in Chicago, his prime years, when he was probably putting up some of the best numbers as far as a returner in his career,
oh yeah,
that's it. And when you look at a guy that can dominate the game like he did as a returner, you would assume that he would be able to provide some type of consistent production at another position, preferably on the offensive side of the ball.
Right.
And that could warrant, it could be a roadblock for him to get in as easy as we think he should get in. But at the end of the day, if he was a specialist and that's what he did, and that's all he did, but he did it extremely well, one of the best to ever do it, I think that he should still be able to get in. But you may have some naysayers say, well, outside of returner,
right.
I mean, you can look at it like this: if we decided not to kick the ball to Devin Hester, and yet we might give up quality field position, but if we don't kick the ball to Devin Hester, what is he actually doing?
Well, the thing is, and I totally understand your point, but the thing is, if you don't kick to Devin Hester, you're probably going to give up that many more yards for the Bears offense to operate. The problem was you had a revolving door of shittiness at the position, where you had Rex Grossman and you had Caleb Haney and you had so many other guys that just couldn't even last in the league, except for Rex Grossman as a longtime backup. So I agree with you. Let me ask you this though, B. Did he just make you look foolish? Is that why you don't want to say right now, off the bat, absolutely, he's a Hall of Famer? Did he do something to you in those back-to-back 50 reception years?
Is it personal?
Rick. No. Outside of Devin going to Miami, no question. I love Devin as a player, great guy on and off the football field. But remember the first thing I said, Rick? Yes, he should be in the Hall of Fame.
Right. Yes, I know.
That's true.
I understand.
That's the first thing I said. I said, yes, he should be in the Hall of Fame. Now, will he be a first ballot?
No.
I don't think so, based on that position, not getting guys in. But first thing I said, Rick, was no question he should be in the Hall of Fame. And then I went on to talk about Brian Mitchell because, me personally, I think Brian Mitchell has really, the job that he did during his playing days is kind of going unnoticed.
Right.
And maybe now with Devin retiring, and we will have more of these discussions about should he get in, that can put more of a light on Brian Mitchell. And I don't care who gets in first.
Totally
me
fair.
Personally, but I think if you're going to talk about a returner getting into the Hall of Fame, you must start and stop that conversation with these two guys, Devin Hester and Brian Mitchell. But remember I also said Devin Hester is the greatest returner in NFL history.
Yes, very much so.
I think he should get in. Will he get in? We have to wait and see because he has to wait, to be eligible, to be up for the Hall. But I'm glad that we're talking about this discussion because returners are extremely important. And I also said too earlier, remember, if you're gonna have the guys that kick the football get into the Hall, you might as well have the guys that return the ball, return the kicks from these kickers. They should get in also.
All right, I agree with you. There's a write-up that was in the Washington Post about Larry Johnson. And as a former football player, I'm sure you saw it and it's troubling. And here's just a blurb, and this is via Bleacher Report as well. In a profile published Tuesday by the Washington Post, Kent Babb, Johnson disclosed he has been suffering from anxiety, paranoia, and quote, the occasional self-destructive impulse. Those feelings, according to Babb, quote, are consistent with those of past victims, close quote, who were diagnosed with CTE. Johnson, who turned 38 in November, also told Babb he's, quote, afraid he won't remember his own name. He has, quote, considered violence toward others and himself. One is telling you to do it, one is telling you don't. Johnson said of the competing urges to commit suicide. Quote, one is telling you it'd be fun, and then lastly, quote, my greatest fear is my daughter falling in love with somebody who's me, he told the writer for the Washington Post. Again, as a former player, and seeing how not only with the settlement that occurred between the Players Association, the NFL, and how the NFL, the one thing that they didn't want in the settlement, of course, is that saying that there's a direct link between getting hit in the head in football and it causing CTE. But are the players now that you're in touch with, are they a little more adamant about possibly taking safety first as they're going into the game? And as you're seeing Larry Johnson's quotes here, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first and foremost, about his quotes is extremely scary to hear, because just like Larry Johnson, just like myself, we played the game for a long, long time, and we played in an era where concussions wasn't a big discussion. You know, we played in an era where if you had concussion-like symptoms on the football field, you may come out for a few plays and go right back in. You know, smelling salt was a necessity on the sideline, just for those particular reasons. And hearing that, you know, he's basically dealing with split personalities that are not safe, that's another scary thing. And I think we should take this seriously. I think his family, his friends should also take this seriously, and try to find a way to get him help before he does something extremely dangerous to himself or someone else. And this is what the NFL is trying to prevent from happening. You know, it's one thing to find out a former player had CTE after death.
Right.
But now, with these findings about potentially having some type of symptoms while you're alive, and hearing a player verbally talk about it, and if something happens to this player or if he does something to someone else, he basically warned us that something wasn't right. How do you keep that in line? And people talk about all the time, Rick, Denise, about they're trying to make the game of football safer, which I respect and I understand. But you cannot play the game thinking of safety, especially as a defender, because if you do, you won't be as successful. We're taught since little league, since high school, college, to play the game full speed and to be disruptive and to play with a bad play. You know, when you get there in a bad mood, is what a coach used to tell me as far as tackling. And I can't second guess myself when I'm on the football field, because you're playing against some of the extraordinary athletes in America, in the world. And if you second guess yourself, you're going to look foolish out there. Yeah. And I understand having, you know, certain things that you would like to modify and change and take out or put in. But football is a violent sport. It is. It's a physical sport. It's a violent sport. When you play football, you got to take your mind to a whole nother place. The same individual that I am right now was not when I was on the football field, because I know I got people that's out there trying to take my head off, so I got to take their head off first and foremost. Mm-hmm. And with this situation with Larry Johnson, you know, it's scary. And like I said, you know, I had concussions when I played. I thought it was normal. You know, at one point in time earlier in my career, when I played the game on the highest level, you wasn't hitting hard until you got a concussion. You wasn't hitting hard until you actually laid somebody out and you saw them motionless on the football field. That's when you know you're bringing the thunder. And that's how we thought. Now we're removing ourselves all the way from that type of, from those thoughts. But we didn't know. You know, we didn't know that it was a severe thing that could really prevent your day-to-day life going on, you know, enjoying life. But now we do. And now they're having, you know, precautionary things to kind of help keep that out of the game. But it's going to be extremely difficult. The only way you can take the physicality out of the game, Rick and Denise, you better take the helmets away. Take the shoulder pads away. That's it. But then it's not football.
Right.
Right? Who wants to watch that? You know, I grew up watching football because of how physical the game was. I grew up watching football because I love to make contact. I love to tackle. That's why I played defense. I grew up a Lawrence Taylor fan. And anybody know anything about Lawrence Taylor? He played with all of his heart in the game. He wanted to inflict pain on opposing offensive players. That's why I wanted to play football. When I was in high school, anytime my teachers pissed me off in school, in class, I couldn't go out, I couldn't lash out on them because they would have thought I was crazy. They'd probably kick me out of school. But on the practice field, I wanted to drill the first person I saw with the ball in front of me. Anytime my mom, you know, kind of got me heated, I held all that pain and anger until I got on the football field. So that's how I grew up. Now you can't really think like that because you got to try to focusing on the safety issues. But it's going to be extremely difficult. I love football religiously. Rick, you know that. You know how much I watch football. But I think it has to start with the little league aspect as far as the proper way to go about the game and trying to, protect others while you're on the football field. But football will forever be a violent sport based on the physicality that you must provide to be successful, either on the offensive side or the defensive side.
Right, and I'm so happy that you ended it on that note where it has to start from little league so that you can really show these players and have them carry these attributes as far as like learning how not to hurt somebody but still get through the play or still get through whatever it is that needs to get done. Is there any kind of do you think that there's any kind of way where you can maybe provide some kind of equipment, or you can think, being that you've played football, think of some kind of equipment that can align with the safety of the players and still keep them able to play the way that they do? Or, because I know, for example, with flag football, we both played, you played sports in college?
No.
Okay.
No.
I was a college.
Breaking news.
I was a college athlete, so I understand how competitive it is, and I understand just how you're so stressed out in your classes, and then you can really unleash on the court. I played basketball, but our coach always made it a point, like, you don't want to necessarily end somebody's career, right? You don't want to, but you still want to go hard on the paint.
Yeah.
So is there something with football, seeing as you're told, like, the whole, you don't go hard until, you knock somebody out, you intentionally give somebody a concussion. Is there any kind of equipment you think that can be better to help, again, just to help them still play the game, but be safe and prevent, or at least lessen the CTE and the just all these repercussions that come with being a football player?
Well, you know what, Denise, based on the history of the game, where we came from, where we came from, and where we at now, I don't think so. And here's why. Here's why I don't believe there's a particular equipment that can be inserted into the game to make the game safer, because they kind of tried that already. You look at the helmets now; they are wearing these different style helmets, right? They started that years back. Even when I was playing, they started these revolutionary helmets that were supposed to prevent concussions, and guys started to really try that from the normal, outside of the normal helmets, the Rydell's. Now they got these different form helmets, and you guys probably see it every weekend. They look like an alien. They're ugly. Right. I never liked those helmets. I used to like the regular Rydell style type helmets. But they tried these helmets because they felt like, based on their research, medical research, that these would prevent concussions. No, not so fast, my friend. When I was in Pittsburgh, they tried to give these out to some of these players. First and foremost, I was a guy that was a looker. You know what I mean? If you look good on the football field, you feel good, you play good, in the words of Deion Sanders. So I wasn't gonna be wearing these ugly looking helmets, first and foremost, that make your head look extremely big. And then they were telling us, well, just try it out. They will prevent concussions. And I remember one of my teammates, he put on a helmet. And I mean, the first ball game, he went to sleep. He was concussed. And I'm like, no, that ain't preventing no concussions. I mean, you can't prevent concussions, especially if you're going full speed. And you got another man in front of you, he's going as fast as he potentially can go, and you make contact. That's not going to stop concussions. So when you look at the history of helmets, how they've changed from 20 years ago to currently where they are now, and we're still seeing concussions. When you look at concussed players on the football field, well, look at their helmets. Look and see what they're wearing. If they're wearing them ugly looking helmets, those helmets are not preventing concussions. The same can be said for the old-fashioned style helmets. So outside of the helmets, as far as head injuries, I don't think they can prevent them. And then they used to say, well, if you wear your mouthpiece, because NFL, it wasn't a requirement to wear mouthpieces. They were like, well, if you wear your mouthpieces, that can prevent you from having concussions because the impact will make you bite down on the mouthpieces. And we've seen time and time again, players that wear mouthpieces, they're still getting concussed. So Denise, to answer your question, I don't think so. And those are the reasons why, because we kind of tried to change the helmets for players, different insides, the cushion, the outside structure, and they still haven't prevented concussion. So I really don't know.
Right.
I mean, you can try to slow the game down as a speed, but if you do, you're not really watching full speed football. You're actually watching more of a glorified walkthrough.
Right.
We're actually seeing something on screen that I think is like bubble football or something like that. Bubble football. Yeah. That's an interesting idea. Will it happen? Negativo, but you know it's worth a shot. All right, B, real quick, and again, we really appreciate you joining us, and we know your time is limited. So with Carson Wentz going down, we know the MVP is up for grabs. And I said it yesterday, and I'm sure many have said it, and I'm sure you have said it. Antonio Brown is now the leader for the MVP in many eyes. But what exactly can Nick Foles learn from these guys via NFL Network? These are guys who replaced the starting quarterback during the season and ended up winning a Super Bowl. So in '71, via NFL Network, Roger Staubach replaced Craig Morton. In 1974, Terry Bradshaw replaced Joe Gilliam. Incredible shot of Terry Bradshaw.
Gilliam.
I'm sorry?
Joe Gilliam, man. Joe Gilliam was supposed to be the guy. He had some issues away from the football field that opened the door for Terry Bradshaw outside of that injury also. But go ahead.
Right. All right, calm down, Mr. Steeler. All right, Jim Plunkett replaced Dan Pastorini in 1980. Doug Williams replaced Jay Schroeder. That was in week 2 in 1987. Jeff Hostetler replaced Phil Simms in 1990. Trent Dilfer replaced Tony Banks in 2000. And then some guy named Tom Brady replaced Drew Bledsoe in 2001. Look, aside from Brady, okay, let's just be real about this. Nick Foles is no goddamn Tom Brady. However, what can Nick Foles learn from these guys of past years who went on to win the Super Bowl, knowing that he's in a very good spot with this Philadelphia Eagles team?
Well, technically, Nick Foles, even though this player has not won a championship, it hasn't even been close, but he can learn some things from Case Keenum. You know, the job he's doing right now currently for Minnesota, having them in the playoff hunt, and clearly, they could potentially find a way to get to Minnesota. You know, they play in Minnesota, but that's where the Super Bowl is.
Right.
But I think most importantly for Nick Foles, he has to realize this team currently has one of the best records in the NFL because they have good players. And they don't need Nick Foles to come in and win the ball games by himself. Right? But they just need Nick Foles to be smart. Because when you look at playoff teams, when you look at teams that are successful in playoffs, they benefit from smart football and they benefit from dumb football from the opposing team. So when I say dumb football, I mean as far as non-athletic mistakes,
right?
Penalties not within the lines, dumb mistakes as far as turnovers, because turnovers can open the window of opportunity for an opposing team or it can close the window of opportunities. And the thing about Case Keenum, what we're seeing right now before our eyes in this season is that Case Keenum has been playing exceptionally smart and he's making timely plays. And because of that, Minnesota they have not missed a beat with him at the quarterback position. Nick Foles has experience as a starter in the league. He actually has more experience starting than Case Keenum. And now you have to understand, we're not inserting a young guy into the lineup. We're inserting a guy that has been to a Pro Bowl. When he was there in Philadelphia, he played pretty good football. I don't even consider his time in St. Louis with the Rams because clearly Jeff Fisher had no idea on how to develop quarterbacks based on what we're seeing right now with Jared Goff.
Right, clearly.
Because remember, Jared Goff looked horrible under Jeff Fisher and his staff. And the same could be said for Nick when he was there with the Rams.
And even for Vince Young, right?
Yeah. Now, Vince Young had some pretty good flashes here and there, but Vince Young was an extraordinary athlete.
Yeah.
He was able to make plays when plays were not there. These two quarterbacks, Jared Goff and Nick Foles, they're not the same athlete like that Vince Young was.
No, not at all. I'm just saying Jeff Fisher not understanding how to nurture a talent in a quarterback.
Yeah. And maybe in his latter years as a head coach, Jeff Fisher kind of lost the relatability to quarterbacks because I thought Vince Young was set up to do some good things. Now his focus was a bit off, and that could have, prevented him from playing the type of football we thought he could potentially play. But just as of late, seeing what Jeff Fisher was not able to do with Jared Goff, that's the big example of maybe why we saw Nick struggle in the Rams. But going back to my point, when you look at the running backs they have in Philadelphia, I think collectively as a unit, when you talk about 3 good running backs. They have the best running backs in the NFL as a unit, right? When you look at the tight ends, when you look at Trey Burton, you get Zach Ertz back. You still got Selleck as a unit. I think they have the best unit of tight ends in the league. Even though the offensive line, they've been dealing with injuries. Without Jason Peters, their best tackle, their best offensive lineman, you still have Lane Johnson, who's been playing real good football. You still got Kelsey at the center position. That offensive line has really done a phenomenal job. And that defense, led by Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator, his ability to put pressure on opposing quarterbacks, that defense has been playing lights out. So with all of that being said, Nick, all I need you to do for me is make timely plays. There's nothing wrong with punting the football, because now you give our outstanding defenses an opportunity to show their worth. But play smart football, make timely plays. And Doug Peterson, he knows Nick Foles, because remember, he was on that staff when Nick was there the first time. And then he actually went out to bring Nick back. Right. So he understands the player. So that I think that relationship that's already established, that will do wonders for them. But Nick just has to understand, you know what? These guys got one of the best records in the NFL because I got talented players surrounding me. I'm gonna let them do what they do. And I'm just going to manage and make timely plays, and most importantly, be smart. They should be okay.
Alrighty, B-Mac, we appreciate it, bro. We appreciate your patience. We appreciate you joining us here on TOT Sports. It's always a pleasure to talk with you once again. A mentor, a friend. I freaking love this guy. Great insights as always. Appreciate it.
Cut it out, Rick. Hey, Rick, I'm happy to see you got the Steelers stuff, because I know you're a Chicago guy, and usually you talk about the Cubs and the Bears.
There's a lot to talk about.
You can't say too much. You can't say too much about the Bulls right now. But I like Pittsburgh flavor right now.
All right, we'll send you some fan stuff. How about that? B-Mac, we appreciate it, bro. Take care.
Good. All right, take care. See you later, Denise.
All righty, Brian McFadden joining us here on TOT Sports. Let's step aside for like 20 seconds, then we'll be back for everybody watching on the live stream. The Los Angeles Lakers lost to the New York Knicks last night in overtime.
In an incredible game.
Good game.
Incredible game.
Really good game. I don't give a damn about that. I do, but like for this context of the clip, I don't. Here's what Lonzo Ball wore prior to the game at Madison Square Garden, throwing shots once again at one of the greatest of all times in all of hip hop. Illmatic, greatest album of all time in hip hop, and he had his team Photoshop his own face on the Illmatic cover. So then Nas is like, hold up. I'm gonna throw shade back at him, and he posts on the IG. I quote, "Great win, Knicks." And then on top of that, All right, so there it is. He's taking notice. So then a great rookie, not rookie of the year, but a great rookie, Donovan Mitchell from the Utah Jazz wrote, he ain't disrespect Nas like that. Oh, but indeed, he did. So with all of this being said, I know Jacory's probably gonna weigh in, curious about Denise. This is a magnificent troll job by Lonzo because once again, he's reigniting a fire. Once he was again playing in New York with a New York rapper in Nas, and now we're talking about it. So he's accomplished his goal.
He has, and you know what? I feel like at this point, he knows exactly the reaction that he's gonna get from people. He's said many times he's not familiar with, classic rap album, classic hip hop albums. He's not familiar with. He's more into the new school, and that's totally fine. He's what, 20?
He's 20. He's 20. He's not even 21.
It's not for me. It's not like a deal breaker, but at the same time. Come on. As a Laker fan, as an LA fan, it's easy for me to ignore what he's wearing.
No, I'm not allowing you to do this.
I can't throw shade at Lonzo.
You can't do this.
He's part of my team.
It doesn't matter.
He's not outside of the
team. Do you know what TYT stands for?
Yes, I do.
What does it stand for?
The Young Turks.
Yeah. And what are we about at the Young Turks?
I understand that, but do you know
honesty and objectivity.
Here's the thing. As a Laker fan, he hasn't. There's already so much not to like about the guy. So if I continue throwing shade, it's gonna make me look hypocritical.
But you're not throwing shade.
I am because deep down it's like like why exactly are you wearing this Nas sweater? Why are you decide? And it's like it's not even done in a tasteful way. It's like an easy crop. He probably got it the night before. Nas is Illmatic is such a classic album.
I already sold this at Complex Con.
And he hasn't had a classic debut season, so it's not the smartest choice for him to say that. Like, why would you do that?
Don't you work at like a hip hop station?
What does that mean?
So like, shouldn't you know about like the incredible history that Nas has, and how an album that's 21 years old is still one of the greatest?
When at any moment did I say that? I didn't know anything.
I'm waiting for you. I'm supplying you a window.
I'm just saying I can't throw shade at Lonzo because that's the most shade. I threw shade at him right now.
So Lonzo can get away with murder, and you'd be like, damn, he's on my team.
I threw subtle shade.
Gotta support the team.
I threw subtle shade, and that's as far as I go because he's playing in my team. Now, had he been playing in, I don't know, like Minnesota or Chicago, the shade, oh man, nonstop. But he's in LA, and the only shade that I can throw at him is
I want to know your threshold.
Don't wear a classic album. Don't mock a classic album if you haven't had a classic debut performance for your first season in the NBA. That's the most shade.
I want to know your threshold of what a Laker could get away with until you're like, that's where I draw the line. Like we established murder, so that's a start.
See, this is like an extreme case. Like this is an extreme case. This is not one of those like, oh my God, he just killed somebody. He decided to wear a mockery sweater in New York. Nas is what? He's a Brooklyn. He's from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, don't quote me. Might be wrong.
Queens.
Anyway,
Queensbridge, right?
He's an East Coast rapper. Oh yeah, might be.
Like Ron Artest.
Yes,
okay.
Queens.
So
I was watching a lot of Joey Badass. I'm not kidding. Before we went on, so that's why I was thinking of Brooklyn as well. But yes, proceed.
Nice, man.
Yeah. So underrated.
You just felt the need to share that?
No, like he said Brooklyn, and I was like, oh yeah, but then I remember Joey Badass is from Brooklyn.
So here's the thing, he's an East Coast rapper, right? Nas is an East Coast rapper.
He is.
Lonzo's playing in the East. It's a freaking joke, and frankly, because it was such a great game, though we didn't come out in with a win, it was regardless an amazing game. So I'm not gonna sit here and say, yo, Lonzo, why are you doing this? Blah blah blah. Like, nah.
In the words of Birdman, all right, on Breakfast Club, put some respect on my name. All right, and that's what he should do with Nas.
You know what? And I appreciate Nas's reaction. It wasn't anything aggressive. How you want me to?
It was subtle.
Exactly how you want me to react. It wasn't aggressive. It was funny. It was witty. It was subtle, and it was a class act. Like he said,
great win, Knicks.
Yeah, great win, Knicks.
Great win, Knicks.
And it was a great win for the Knicks.
Should I be mad when I see a tweet by Lonzo that has like Future as one of his greatest, and like Migos as one of his greatest.
No, because he's 20.
And 21 Savage as one of his greatest.
No, because he's 20. Like, you have to understand. And
when I
it's
was
difficult for me
20,
to
look,
understand.
different strokes. When I was 20 at Indiana University, I was listening to like Raucous Records and like Mighty Most Def, and I was like learning about the history of what I got into when I was probably like 11 years old.
Right.
And yeah, bro, but were you listening to African Bambaataa and the Zulu Nation?
Let them know,
African
please.
Bambaataa is not a good dude.
Like, you weren't listening to the originators or hit. Like, come on, it's eras, you know? There's a new era now, and the new era is Future. It is 21 Savage.
Where's your camera?
Migos, you know?
See?
We couldn't do the camera today because technical difficulties.
Man.
We got a couch in the way. But it's just a new school, man. It's no disrespect. It's just what he knows.
See?
I was listening to Africa Bambaataa and Mos Def and all those guys. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Lonzo's trying to restart the East Coast, West Coast beef from the 90s.
Maybe he's igniting that. Maybe he's igniting
Just
that.
a thought. But I think like him wearing that shirt and he just needs to like step back from all it and just have some reflection and some retrospectiveness in the history of music and rap music and just
Right, but
pay a little respect, just a little
he
bit.
doesn't want to.
Nah, I'm with Denise though. On the totem pole of things to hate Lonzo for, man.
I never said I hate Lonzo.
This can't be one of them. And
I just don't like
this can't be one of them. I as much as I'm not a big Lonzo.
I don't hate
fan,
anybody.
Yeah, neither do I. But it's
I don't
like,
hate anybody except
he's a
Hitler,
hater.
all right?
He's a hater.
There's only one person, and he's dead.
Look,
all right.
okay,
So I don't hate anybody.
Now listen, I feel like if anything, one reason that he could be wearing this sweater is frankly because he wants to take away from the attention on his performance. I mean, let's face it, everyone can agree that he's getting so much pressure, of course, because it comes with the pressure that his dad is building and the hype that his dad is building, but he's getting so much pressure for not performing to his fullest potential on the court this season, right? And I can agree. I thought he was gonna come out a little more aggressive, and he seems to be a little more timid, and his dad blames it on the coach. And we actually talked about this before. You know, Luke Walton, I can't even picture him really screaming. So regardless, I'm not putting any blame on anybody. But there's so much attention on his performance that maybe he was like, you know what, like, I'm gonna wear this sweater, and everyone's gonna talk about this sweater more than they're gonna talk about my performance, whether the Lakers win or the Lakers lose. And look what's happening. So I think he got what he wanted. He wore the sweater. It was a joke, and I'm glad there wasn't any or that much effort to it because it was an easy Photoshop job that maybe his friend did. Then he probably went to, I was gonna say a swap meet, but he probably, I don't know, his dad probably had some kind of plug where they just did it. And then
I was actually checking right now.
Day of.
I was checking if you could buy it. Like if this was a subtle promotion.
No, check Big Baller Brand.
I don't want to give them a hit. So, thoughts, comment section below. Subscribe to 2IT Sports. See you soon. Okay. Alrighty, we return here on TYT Sports. That is Denise Jones, who is laughing because I know one country song. I am Rick. This is via Bleacher Report. Let's run through these and then we'll discuss which ones we like the most. Boogie Cousins, it appears, is on the block.
Yeah.
We don't know that for sure. It just appears where there's smoke, there's fire, and man, we're smoking right now, literally in Southern California. So here is Bleacher Report's Adam Fromal. I'm sorry if I pronounced your last name incorrectly. I know I pronounced Adam correctly. The Cleveland Cavaliers get Boogie Cousins. The Pelicans get Channing Frye, Iman Shumpert. But the big one is the 2018 first-round pick this season. Brooklyn Nets, bad team. D'Angelo Russell out for the season. They may have got Jahlil Okafor. It's not going to save them from getting a top 3 or 4 pick. The Milwaukee Bucks would get Boogie Cousins and Omer Asik. Boy, a poison pill of a contract. For Malcolm Brogdon, good player. John Henson, Jabari Parker, Mirza Teletovic. Leave us there for 1 second. Brogdon is the only one that I would want.
Right.
Granted, Jabari Parker is in there. You got to show me something. You got to show me you could stay healthy. There's lust there. There's not love yet. Okay, continuing. Excuse me. The Portland Trailblazers would get Boogie. I like this one as well.
Yeah,
because they get Nurkic. Ed Davis is a really, really nice role player. Mo Harkless is okay, but again, the important one attached to Nurkic is the 2018 first-round pick that's lottery protected. And I believe we have 2 more. This is a really interesting trade. The Toronto Raptors would give up my Hoosier, OG Anunoby, Jonas Valanciunas. Check out his thoughts on the Ball brothers going to Lithuania. That's interesting. And the 2019 second-round pick for DeMarcus Cousins. I don't even know if that's enough.
Yeah.
OG's a good player, but I don't know if it's enough. And then lastly, the Washington Wizards would get Boogie. They'd have to give up Kelly Oubre Jr. I'm fine with that. Marcin Gortat, I'm fine with that. And they would give up a top 10 protected pick. Out of all of those, which one do you like?
I'd go with the Blazers. I'd go with the Blazers or the Cavs. I'd go with, and frankly, just because the lottery pick that comes with it is just, there's so much potential.
Yes.
That.
Oh, yes.
And the thing is, like, Boogie's such a great player that wherever he goes, I think he's consistent enough to just like shine individually. Now, will he mesh well with a team? It really depends where he goes. But I feel like with the Blazers, if you add him, even if you add him on the starting lineup, I mean, I think he'll shine really well on the Blazers and on the Cavs.
Cleveland. Yeah. I like both of those. I think the Blazers is really interesting because I also thought, and we established this a long time ago, that I thought they should trade for Julius Randle.
Yeah.
Because I think having a young core of inside, outside players, mostly outside if you go 2 out of 3, with Dame and CJ McCollum, and then you add Julius Randle to be your 4 of the future, I'm cool with that. If they want to add Boogie, cool, but you gotta, if I am management, get permission from Dame and CJ and be like, hey, you guys cool with getting him? And if they say no, then you don't.
You would prefer, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you'd prefer to
interrupt
have
away.
Julius over...
No, I'd rather have Boogie.
Boogie? Okay.
I'd rather have Boogie.
I'm glad we clarified. Yeah, that makes more sense.
No, I'm just saying I like them both.
Right.
Like I don't hate one over the other.
No, they're both great players. There's no argument
Boogie's
about
a better player.
Yeah, he is. I cannot.
Come on, don't do this.
I know.
Do not do this with your Lakers fanhood again, all right? Please,
I thought about it, but I knew the argument that was going to come with it, and I knew, like, deep down, I know Boogie's a greater player. He's more consistent, which is why my first statement into this topic was whatever team he goes in, he's going to excel individually, but whether he's going to mix well with the team, it really depends where he goes. But, yeah, with the Blazers and the Cavs, I think, is his best bet.
If you were the Cavs, you would give up the Brooklyn pick to get Boogie?
Yeah, because they would not only get... yeah.
I'm just looking up his contract because I want to know. And
he would be getting what's his name? Tiana's guy, Schumbert.
DeMarcus Cousins is a free agent after this year, so you're pretty. Oh, Amon Shumpert. Who's Schumbert? That's fantastic.
Excuse the accent, guys. Excuse the accent.
Boogie's a free agent after this year, so you're getting a rental. Man, I don't know if I could give it up unless you have clarity that LeBron is going to stay. Then you try to re-sign Boogie, which we don't think that he is, unless management is like, hey, why don't you take my job and I'll just take a step back, which is probably what's happening. But we have no reason to believe it.
Yeah, he's gone.
I agree. I think he's leaving too. That's why you don't give up the Brooklyn pick unless you know that LeBron is staying and Boogie's staying, because you don't want to trade the number 3, probably overall pick for a rental.
Fair. So.
Or in the words of Denise Jones.
Facts.
Thank you.
But. So yeah, and I mean, if you bring us that point, but even then, regardless, like whether LeBron leaves or stays, personally, I feel like Boogie is just, he's that player that B was talking about that is just like, he comes in angry every freaking game. He comes in so aggressive, where LeBron has that mentality where I feel back in the day more than now, where he came out with this like beast mode, angry. Everyone hated him, so that even pumped him up even more. Now he's like this 30-something-year-old seasoned man, a little more calm. He's just that player that everyone wants to aspire to be at this point. So he's kind of like, I feel a little more humble. But Boogie's like that throwback LeBron attitude, not performance, attitude. So I feel like he would, whether LeBron again leaves or stays, he'd still do well with the chemistry that the Cavs have. But I would like him better with the Blazers with Dame and CJ.
I think so too. Again, if you could keep him long term as well. But the problem I have, lastly, the problem I have is I think LeBron is the perfect mentor. I don't know if there's a mentor to take Boogie under his wing and be like, dude,
you think Boogie would want to be mentored though?
To win?
Of course to win.
First off, to get to the playoffs for the first time. Let's just talk about that.
Okay.
Because he hasn't been. So I think that would be like taking a step back, maturing a little bit, seeing the big stage that he hasn't been able to just even get over the hump of getting into. And then having LeBron take him under his wing and be like, look, man, channel that frustration and use it out on the court, not on the refs, not on opposing players where you get technical fouls and are a crutch for your team. So let us know your thoughts. Comment section below. Subscribe to 2IT Sports. An NBA Hall of Famer once again weighs in on why LeVar Ball is, in his own eyes, not my words, but his, a bad father. Denise Jones is going to weigh in on this as well, as she is the co-host for today. He, LeVar, represents everything that's bad about sports, says Hall of Famer Charles Barkley. It's all about him. You know, I just feel bad for those kids because everybody's talking about he might be a good father, this and that. No, he's not. He's just exploiting his kids. I love the kid playing for the Lakers. Dude, you're an NBA analyst. Like, just say Lonzo. I don't know the other kids. He's all about BBB. He has no foreseeable talent. And then he continues on. He's trying to make money on his kids. I just feel sadness for those kids because they're going to do whatever they tell him to do, and I just don't like the guy at all, plain and simple. Don't tell me he's a good father. I wish they would quit putting him on television because he has no talent whatsoever. I don't know anything about that league as in Lithuania or where it is, Lithuania. First off, I wish there was a place further away they could send LeVar. I would never leave my kids over there. If he's a legit father, he should stay over there with those kids the entire time. That would prove something to me. You know, people want to say he's a great father. Well, stay over there with those kids. I would never send my 2 teenage kids to Lithuania, then show up in the US the next day. Thoughts, Denise Jones?
Well, I agree with some of his statements.
Okay.
But I can't agree with like the whole like he has no talent, he's not a good father, because it's very apparent. Like his talent is marketing. He might have not
that's true.
He might have not been the best athlete. He might have not been the best coach, but he's a great marketer. And whether his kids were playing in the NBA or not, he was still going to sell you a product one way or another. So that's his talent, marketing. And that's an important talent these days.
Yeah, good point.
So that's a talent. 2, not a good father. Well, listen, he's kind of I feel he's taking in all the heat for his kids, and he never says anything bad or negative about his kids. I was going to say he never puts his kids under a bad light, but obviously. That's
right.
So he doesn't say anything negative about his kids. He catches all the heat for his kids. Whenever anything bad is said about him or it involves his kids or his kids' name is in the conversation, he always puts his name first so that he catches all the heat. And he's helped his kid, his kids at least, get in the NBA and get through a college education and do all the right steps with one kid, and he's trying to do that with the other 2 kids. So he's constantly putting his kids first. Now, whether it's for his benefit or not, the kids are still growing with his success. Right. So again, I think he's a good father.
I think it's impossible, allow me to interject, to say that he's a bad father.
It is. It is
we don't
impossible.
really know what's going on behind the scenes.
Right.
I
think it's impossible to like completely claim either way that he's a good father or bad father.
Right.
Which is
You've seen a maximum of what, 75, being generous, 75 hours of broadcasted LeVar Ball, what he's wanted us to see. We don't know how that man treats his kids at home.
Exactly.
I will agree with what I think Charles Barkley was trying to say, was that all that we see him on TV yapping about his kids doesn't necessarily mean he's a good father.
Right.
But I don't.
Correct,
I don't
and
think
it's misconstrued
whether he's good or bad.
Right, and it's misconstrued with what he said because he went off on different tangents inside of an entire cloud of tangents.
As Charles Barkley usually does.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'd say if I had to pick between whether he's a good father or a bad father, the line that I'm standing in is a good. I don't see any bad from it. You're right. I don't think it's enough information to say one or the other. But if I had to choose one, I'm gonna lean on the positive side. Now. Yeah. With the rest of his statement, and it's my final point. He's right in the sense where he should stay with those kids
in Lithuania.
Lithuania, yeah, he should, because one of them is 16, and though he's breaking a record, being the youngest U.S. player to play overseas, great, fantastic. But at the end of the day, your kids aren't even 20. Like, I mean, yeah, one of them is
16 and 19.
16 and 19. They're not even 20. Like, they're by themselves over there. I don't know where the mom is. Is she going to be over there or not? Frankly, I think they need a
probably not.
Probably not.
I think they need
I think they need like a male figure to just protect them and make sure that everything's right. They're not being taken advantage of. From what I heard, they're going to be getting paid $500 a month. LiAngelo just threw away a full college scholarship worth way more than that. So they're gonna have to work on making ends meet with $500 a month. I don't know exactly how much you can make with that or do with that out there, but there needs to be an adult, a male figure with them during this trip. And if it's his decision, you kind of have to bite the bullet there and go to Lithuania.
So like, There's like a few different points to make, and then we're gonna get going. Firstly, I think that LeVar will be there. I just don't think he'll be there the entire time.
Right.
Like, he's gonna go back and forth. He can obviously afford it. His kids are driving fucking Lamborghinis, so I mean, I'm sure that he could afford to fly back and forth from Lithuania and LA. So on top of that, like the whole, again, misconstruing him being a bad father just because he talks shit all the time. What I believe Charles was really doing is standing up for the players that he has insulted, but those players don't want to go back at him.
Right.
Like the one thing that I pointed to when Michael Jordan decided to reply back to LeVar Ball is he just validated everything that LeVar Ball was doing by simply acknowledging him. He was doing such a good job, and this was like over the summer, I think, at a camp in Charlotte or something, where he finally just like acknowledged that LeVar Ball was talking shit. That, in essence, is validating what he's saying. Not true, but like a lion won't necessarily pay attention to like an ant because he doesn't give a shit about it. It's so small, it's tiny, it's nothing off his back. But once you do, then it seems like that ant is amplified into being like a god.
And but what if this ant has like a microphone and it's just like making all this
with one of his
disruption? So like,
yo.
Like if it's a loud ass ant, you don't think the lion's gonna look?
No, he shouldn't. Like Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is the lion, and it was a bad analogy, but like you understand the point that I'm trying to say. Lastly, don't try to like go into the psychology of LeVar Ball at all, let alone him being a father to 3 kids that he's raised, because he's already been successful with getting one at UCLA, primo program, even though I hate Steve Alford, and then also with the Los Angeles Lakers, one of the best franchises ever in the National Basketball Association. So even if the other 2, LaMelo and LiAngelo, don't make it to the NBA, it's already a success story for the Balls, because not only, as you said, there was one talent of, it appears many, marketing, but also having a kid that is the franchise player for one of the best and most recognizable franchises of all time. So he's already won. Yeah. You're unfortunately welcome. All right, we gotta go. Let us know your thoughts, comment section below, subscribe to 2BT Sports.